And my daughter knows that I'm not going to stop until I find her. And I'm not going to quit, because if I quit, then who finds her? She matters to me.
Still haunting questions tonight after a missing woman was found dead on an apartment balcony in the same area where she was last seen.
March 17, 2022, Cleveland, Ohio. The cleaning worker climbed the stairs to the second-floor balcony, ready for another routine job, another evicted tenant, another mess to clean up. Just 6 days earlier, Benny Washington had been forced out of his Warner Road apartment, leaving behind the usual chaos of a hurried departure. But something was wrong with this balcony. A pile of clothes sat stacked in the corner, blankets thrown carelessly on top. The smell hit first, something the worker couldn't quite place, something that made every instinct scream to back away. When they moved that first blanket, the world stopped. "I need police," the worker gasped into the phone. There's a body up here." What lay beneath those blankets would unravel 8 months of lies, expose a performance so twisted it defied belief, and reveal how a monster had fooled an entire community while his victim rotted just feet from his living room. This wasn't just any body. This was someone's daughter, someone's future, someone who had dreams, plans, a whole life ahead of her. Someone who had been missing for 237 days. But here's what'll chill you to the bone. While this discovery was being made, while police were racing to Warner Road, while a family was about to receive the call that would destroy them forever, the person responsible had been playing the role of concerned boyfriend for over 8 months. He'd made daily phone calls. "Just checking on you. We're going to find her." He'd organized search parties in the very neighborhood where his secret lay hidden. He'd comforted a grieving mother while knowing exactly where her daughter was the entire time. July 30th, 2021. That's when it all began. An 18-year-old with military dreams, a bright future, and a fatal trust in the wrong person. One phone call home at 2:30 p.m. One suspicious text message that fooled nobody. One disappearance that would haunt Cleveland for months. The age gap should have been the first red flag. The criminal history should have been the second. The hostile reaction to police should have sealed it. But sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones who know exactly how to blend in, how to play the part, how to make everyone believe they're the good guy. For 237 days, a family searched. For 237 days, volunteers combed the streets. For 237 days, the truth was hidden in plain sight on a balcony overlooking the very area they were searching. Welcome to our channel, where the most shocking revelations come from the people you'd never suspect. If you're ready to dive into a case that'll make you question everything you think you know about trust, smash that like button and share this video. The real story is just beginning. Audriana Barnes wasn't supposed to be just another statistic. At 18, she'd already accomplished more than most people twice her age. Graduating high school early at just 17, a testament to the drive and intelligence that made everyone who knew her believe she was destined for greatness. Warrensville Heights, Ohio, was home. A Cleveland suburb where she lived with her devoted mother, Aqua Avienyan, who watched her daughter chase dreams that seemed almost too big for someone so young. But Audriana had been laser-focused on one goal since 9th grade, serving her country in the U.S. Army. This wasn't some passing teenage fantasy. While her classmates were figuring out college majors, Audriana was mapping out her military career. She'd scheduled meetings with Army recruiters, researched different military occupational specialties, and talked constantly about the day she'd take her oath of enlistment. She had been dreaming of joining the military since 9th grade, her mother would later tell investigators, pride and heartbreak mixing in her voice. The early graduation wasn't just about being smart, it was strategic. Adriana wanted to get started on her military path as soon as possible, but there was something else, something that would make this case even more devastating when the truth finally came out. Adriana was pregnant. The revelation would only surface during the trial, drop like a bomb during the sentencing hearing. Her mother's voice cracked as she revealed what Washington had stolen, not just her daughter's life, but the life of her unborn grandchild. Washington had even mentioned missing her and my baby while pretending to help search for Adriana.
You called my phone every day to say we're gonna find her, we gonna make sure she come back. You stood in the kitchen and said, I miss her and my baby. But yet you took her knowing that she was pregnant.
A level of manipulation so twisted it defied comprehension. The young woman who'd graduated early, who dreamed of serving her country, who was carrying new life inside her, had already become the victim of someone she trusted, someone who was about to begin the performance of his lifetime. Benny Washington wasn't just older than Adriana, he was dangerous, and everyone should have seen it coming. At 39, Washington carried a criminal record that read like a horror story. This wasn't some guy who'd made a few mistakes in his youth. This was a pattern of escalating violence that painted a clear picture of who he really was. 2010, Washington shot a woman in the back over a $40 cocaine debt. $40. He put a bullet in someone's spine for the price of a dinner date. The courts gave him 7 years, but apparently that wasn't enough to teach him that human life had value. 2019, he was charged with raping a 3-year-old girl, a toddler. The child's grandmother had to call police after the little girl told her what Washington had done. The case details are too disturbing to share, but they show exactly what kind of monster Adriana was dealing with. His rap sheet included felony assaults, gun possession as a felon, drug possession, vandalism, a greatest hits collection of violent crime. By June 2022, he'd added arson, assault, and aggravated menacing to his resume. But here's what makes this even more twisted. Washington knew how to play the game. He knew how to manipulate people, how to present himself as the victim, how to make others believe he was just misunderstood. When Detective Gregory Curry tried to interview Washington early in the investigation, the mask slipped completely. My partner and I walked up and introduced ourselves to him, and he blew up on us, Curry recalled. I hate police, called us all kinds of names. Basically, he was attacking my partner. This wasn't the reaction of someone worried about his missing girlfriend. This was the reaction of someone who knew exactly what had happened and was furious that police were getting close. Ms. eventually asked for an attorney and just walked away and went into his building, Curry continued. Think about that. Your teenage girlfriend is missing, and when police come to ask questions, you explode with rage and lawyer up immediately? That's not concern. That's guilt. The age gap between Washington and Adriana wasn't just creepy. It was a weapon. At 39, he had 2 decades of life experience over her. He had financial resources, social connections, and most importantly, he knew how to manipulate young women who were still figuring out their place in the world. Adriana was 18, pregnant and dreaming of a military career. Washington was a convicted violent felon with a history of hurting women and children. The power imbalance was staggering, but Washington had perfected his act. He could be charming when he needed to be, supportive when it served his purposes, and absolutely ruthless when someone threatened his control. In the weeks leading up to his arrest, residents reported his erratic public behavior to police. The facade was cracking, the performance was falling apart, and Washington was becoming increasingly desperate. When officers finally came for him on March 19, 2022, he ran into someone else's home and jumped out a window like the coward he'd always been. Comment red flag if you've seen these warning signs in someone you know. July 30, 2021, the day that would haunt Cleveland forever. Adriana woke up that morning with military dreams dancing in her head. Today was the day. Another meeting with Army recruiters, another step closer to the uniform she'd been picturing since 9th grade. She was staying at Washington's Warner Road apartment, and everything seemed normal. The recruiters arrived right on schedule, professional, courteous, ready to discuss Adriana's future. They picked her up from the apartment building, spent time going over her options, her timeline, her path to enlistment. For a few hours, Adriana's world was exactly where she wanted it to be. And then they brought her back. They picked her up at her boyfriend's house in Cleveland, Detective Curry would later explain. They then dropped her back off there. They just don't know if she went back into the apartment or if she walked away. That drop-off happened around 2:30 p.m. Adriana made one final phone call to her family, routine, normal, nothing that suggested she was in danger. Her voice was calm, her plans intact. She was looking forward to seeing everyone later. But something shifted in those next few hours. Something that would turn a promising young woman's life into a nightmare. By evening, Akua Avellon's boyfriend received a text from Adriana's phone. She needed a ride. She was at a gas station and couldn't get home. Simple request, except every word felt wrong. The text didn't seem like it came from her. Avellon told investigators, her maternal instinct screaming danger. The message was asking for pickup from a gas station on Warner Road. There was just one problem. No gas station existed at that location. Someone was lying, and they weren't even good at it. Within hours, Adriana's digital footprint began disappearing. Her social media accounts went dark, not deactivated, not ignored, but systematically shut down. Her phone was turned off, cutting her connection to the outside world completely. The family's panic was immediate. Adriana had left her shoes at home. Her clothes were still there. She had no money with her. This wasn't a planned departure.
Her shoes are at home. All of her clothes are at home. She had no money, so where did she go?
This was someone who'd been cut off from everything that could help her. But here's where this story takes a turn that'll make your skin crawl. While Adriana's family was frantically trying to piece together what happened, while they were calling hospitals and filing missing person reports, while they were organizing search parties and plastering her photo everywhere, Benny Washington was right there with them. Concerned boyfriend, worried partner, ready to help in any way he could. He was calling Akua Avellon daily. "Just checking on you," he'd say, his voice full of fake concern, "making sure you're okay. We're going to find her." He was organizing search efforts in the very neighborhood where he lived. He was comforting family members, offering support, playing the role of the devastated boyfriend so perfectly that nobody questioned his sincerity. "You helped me look for her," Avellon would later tell him in court, her voice breaking with rage. "You called every day, just checking on you, making sure you're okay. We're going to find her, when all the while you knew what you did to her." The performance had begun, and Washington was about to give the acting job of his lifetime. With Adriana's body rotting just feet away from where he slept every night. For 8 months, Akua Avellon lived in hell. Every morning she woke up wondering if today would be the day she'd get answers. Every night she went to bed knowing her daughter was still out there somewhere, needing help. But she wasn't searching alone. Benny Washington had appointed himself as the family's biggest supporter, the grieving boyfriend who just wanted his girl back home. He was there for every search party, every vigil, every desperate attempt to find Adriana. "Just checking on you" became his daily mantra. The phone would ring, and there he'd be. Washington's voice full of concern, asking how Akua was holding up, promising they'd find Adriana soon. He wasn't just making phone calls. Washington was actively participating in search efforts, walking the streets of Cleveland with volunteers, his face a mask of worry and determination. He'd comfort other family members when they broke down. He'd suggest new areas to search. He'd even bring supplies for the search teams. November 2021, 4 months after Adriana vanished, the family organized a massive search party in the Broadway Slavic Village neighborhood, the exact area where she was last seen. Dozens of volunteers showed up, ready to comb every alley, every abandoned building, every possible hiding spot. They were searching the very streets that surrounded Washington's apartment building. They walked past his balcony. They called Adriana's name while standing directly below where her body was decomposing. Washington was right there with them, shouting her name, looking under dumpsters, checking behind buildings. The concerned boyfriend helping search for his missing girlfriend while her corpse rotted 20 feet above their heads. The cruel irony was suffocating. Every step they took, every flyer they posted, every prayer they said, all of it happening in the shadow of the balcony where Adriana had been lying since July. "We're going to find her," Washington would tell Akua, his hand on her shoulder, his voice steady with false hope. "Don't give up. She's out there somewhere." The community rallied around the family. Local news covered the story. Social media campaigns spread Adriana's photo across Ohio. Everyone wanted to help bring this young woman home. Everyone except the one person who knew exactly where she was. Washington's performance was flawless. He never slipped up, never showed guilt, never gave anyone reason to suspect him. He played the role of the devoted boyfriend so convincingly that even seasoned investigators didn't see through the act. Detective Curry had tried to interview Washington early in the investigation, but Washington's explosive reaction and demand for a lawyer had shut that down. Still, his daily contact with the family, his participation in searches, his apparent cooperation, it all painted him as someone genuinely concerned about Adriana's welfare. The months dragged on. Winter turned to spring. Akua's hope began to fade, but Washington kept calling, kept checking in, kept promising they'd find her. "You knew," Akua would later scream at him in court, "but you just kept calling me. You kept saying, 'Oh, she's coming home,' when you knew she wasn't." March 2022 was about to change everything. An eviction notice would finally expose the truth that had been hiding in plain sight for 237 days. March 11th, 2022. After 8 months of lies, reality was about to catch up with Benny Washington. The eviction notice was final. Washington had to go, and he knew it. Whatever had been festering on that balcony was about to become someone else's problem. He packed his belongings, grabbed what he could carry, and walked away from Warner Road, leaving behind the most damning evidence imaginable. For 6 days, the apartment sat empty, silent, waiting. March 17th changed everything. The cleaning worker climbed those stairs with no idea they were about to stumble into Cleveland's most twisted crime scene. It was supposed to be routine: assess the damage, figure out what needed to be cleaned, get the place ready for the next tenant. But the balcony told a different story. Clothes piled high in the corner, blankets thrown carelessly on top, the smell that made every instinct scream to run. When that first blanket was pulled back, the worker's world exploded. Adriana Barnes, or what was left of her. 8 months of Ohio weather had done its work. Rain, snow, heat, cold. All of it had beaten down on the balcony where Washington had dumped her like garbage. The body was severely decomposed, wrapped in a blanket, hidden under the pile of clothes like some sick attempt at camouflage. But Washington had made mistakes, fatal ones. The bullet casings were still there, scattered near where Adriana's body lay. Physical evidence of the execution that had taken place inside the apartment. The medical examiner would later confirm what those casings suggested. Adriana had died from a gunshot wound to the head. Inside the apartment, investigators found the smoking gun, a bullet hole in the wall. The trajectory told the story Washington never wanted anyone to hear. This wasn't some accident, some crime of passion, some moment of temporary insanity. This was cold-blooded murder. The evidence painted a horrifying picture. Washington had shot Audriana inside his apartment, then dragged her body outside to the balcony. Investigators believed he'd deliberately placed her there to speed up decomposition, a calculated move to destroy evidence and make identification harder. For 237 days, while he was calling Akua Avignon with fake concern, while he was organizing search parties, while he was playing the grieving boyfriend, Audriana's body was rotting just steps from his bedroom. Every night he went to sleep, she was there. Every morning he woke up, she was there. Every time he stepped onto that balcony to smoke a cigarette or get some air, she was there. And he never said a word. March 19, 2022, 2 days after the discovery, police finally had enough evidence to move on Washington, but he wasn't going quietly. When officers spotted him on the street, Washington's survival instincts kicked in. He ran. Not the behavior of an innocent man, but the desperate flight of someone who knew his performance was finally over. He burst into a stranger's home, terrifying the occupants, then threw himself out a window in a pathetic attempt to escape justice. The man who'd spent 8 months playing the concerned boyfriend was now showing his true colors, a coward who'd rather jump through glass than face what he'd done. They caught him the next day. The performance was over, the truth was out, and Audriana Barnes could finally rest. May 24, 2023, the jury had heard enough. Guilty on 2 counts of murder, guilty on 2 counts of felonious assault, guilty on gross abuse of a corpse, guilty on having weapons under disability. The verdict was swift, decisive, and absolutely devastating for Washington. But the real fireworks were yet to come. June 12, 2023. Sentencing Day. The moment Akua Avignon had been waiting for since that horrific phone call in March 2022. This was her chance to look the monster in the eye and tell him exactly what she thought of his 8-month performance. Judge William McGinty's courtroom was packed. Family members, supporters, media, everyone wanted to witness this reckoning. Washington sat at the defendant's table, showing the same lack of remorse that had characterized his entire defense. Then Akua Avignon stood up. "I hope every time you close your eyes, you see her," she began, her voice steady but filled with volcanic rage. "Every time it's quiet, you hear crying." The courtroom was dead silent. This was raw, unfiltered maternal fury unleashed on the man who'd stolen everything from her.
I hope every time you close your eyes, you see her. Every time it's quiet, you hear crying. You deserve everything that you're gonna get. You are disgusting.
You deserve everything that you're gonna get. You are disgusting. But Akua wasn't done. She was just getting started. "You helped me look for her. You called every day. Just checking on you, making sure you're okay. We're going to find her," when all the while you knew what you did to her. You knew. But you just kept calling me. You kept saying, "Oh, she's coming home," when you knew she wasn't. The manipulation, the daily phone calls, the fake concern, the search parties, all of it laid bare in front of a packed courtroom while Washington sat there like the coward he'd always been. "You're disgusting," she finished, her voice breaking with emotion. Audriana's aunt, LaToya Clark, took her turn next. Her words were simple but devastating. "You're way older, she's a baby, you killed a baby. There is nothing on this earth that an 18-year-old can do to a 40-year-old for you to kill her." The age gap, the power imbalance, the absolute senselessness of what Washington had done. Clark's words cut through every excuse, every justification, every attempt at sympathy. Another family member, who chose not to be identified, delivered their own message. "I hope every time you close your eyes, you see her." The theme was clear. They wanted Washington to live with what he'd done. They wanted Audriana's face to haunt him for the rest of his miserable life. Judge McGinty had heard enough. Before delivering the sentence, he made one observation that summed up everything. Washington showed no remorse. Not during the trial, not during the sentencing, not even when faced with the raw pain of the family he'd destroyed. 38 years to life in prison. Washington won't be eligible for parole until he's served at least 38 years behind bars. If he lives that long, he'll be 78 years old before he even gets a chance to argue for his freedom. Share your thoughts on the sentence, justice or not enough. Audriana Barnes should be alive today. She should be wearing Army fatigues, serving her country, raising her child. Instead, she's another statistic in America's domestic violence epidemic. The warning signs were blazing red: a 21-year age gap, a criminal history that included shooting someone over $40, charges involving a 3-year-old, explosive hostility toward police. These weren't subtle hints, they were screaming alarms that everyone ignored. Young women are particularly vulnerable to older predators who use experience, resources, and manipulation as weapons. Washington knew exactly how to play the concerned boyfriend while orchestrating Audriana's disappearance from the world. Trust your instincts. If a text message doesn't sound right, investigate. If someone's reaction to police seems extreme, pay attention. If a partner isolates you from family, run. Most importantly, age gaps matter. When someone has decades more life experience, the power balance isn't equal, it's predatory. Audriana's story isn't just about one monster. It's about a system that failed to protect a pregnant teenager from a known violent criminal. Her dreams died on that balcony, but her story can save others. Because somewhere right now, another young woman is dating someone just like Benny Washington, and the next Audrey could be someone you know. Stay vigilant, stay safe, and never ignore the red flags.